we would finish at 1. Would it be possible for you to stay to 1:10? Would that create a problem for you? And I understand agreement.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. Well, let me just say to the members, what we would do is divide 10 minutes on each side. And, of course, at this point, so why don't we yield 5 minutes to the chairman, the ranking member on the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be brief. I just want to go through a couple of quick questions. First of all, it appears as though much of the media thinks the end justifies the means, meaning that even if there were threats or if people felt threatened to go through with deals, it's okay because it worked out. Do you agree with that?
No, sir. We used only legal and ethical means.
Okay, I appreciate that. Because, do you also agree that at all times the rule of law and that the expectations that are written into both the letter and the broader meaning of the law should be the guidance for all transactions done behind closed doors by federal officials?
Yes, sir.
As we choose to find ways to resolve the ambiguity between Ken Lewis, Hank Paulson, yourself, and of course a number of people whose emails have been cited today, are you prepared to answer in writing, not to return here probably, additional questions that may come up that would help us clear that up?
Yes.
Do you at this time believe that intentionally Ken Lewis, Hank Paulson, or any of the people that we've cited today in emails intended to lie in their statements?
I have no judgment on that.
But you believe in good faith that they think what they're saying is true, at least as far as you know?
As far as I know.
Do you think that federal regulators should pick winners and losers as they go through trying to figure out in a crisis like this who gets to own who or who gets bailout money and who doesn't?
I think all these interventions are very unfortunate, and they're only made necessary by the extreme circumstances.
Earlier, one of the people we mentioned was Mr. Lacker. In light of his email paraphrasing a longer discussion, do you intend to speak to him and try to clarify how the difference in interpretation could have happened?
I've done so already, and he didn't have any further recollection.
Okay, and then I'd like to yield to Mr. Burton the balance of this 5 minutes.
Let me just say that I don't want to dwell on this, but one of the biggest problems I have is the government telling the private sector what to do and how to do it. We had the head of General Motors literally fired by the government. Now, maybe there might have been justification for his removal, but I didn't think the government ought to be telling somebody who's answerable to the stockholders what they're supposed to do. And one of the things that concerns me is on December the 5th, Bank of America stockholders approved that sale or that purchase and that merger when they thought it was a $9 billion loss. And then the 14th, they found out it wasn't $9 billion, but $12 billion. And then because they decided that they didn't want to do that, they contacted you and Mr. Paulson, and whether Mr. Paulson said directly you told him to do it or not to do it, but the inference was there that the Fed said if they pull out of this deal, you know, their board and the CEO is going to be gone. Mr. Lackey said on the 20th, 2 days before they made the decision to go ahead with it, he said, just had a long talk with Ben, says they think that the MAC threat is irrelevant because it's not credible, also intends to make it even more clear that if they play this card and then need assistance, the management is gone. So even though they were going to incur $3 billion more in liabilities, because of the pressure put on by you and Mr. Paulson, they went ahead with that deal because they thought they and their management was going to be fired. And now that's the problem I have. The government is coming in and saying, you're going to do this or else. This is not a socialistic society. This is a government of free enterprise and of the people and by the people and for the people. And what bothers me is they thought they were incurring $9 billion. They found out it was $12 billion. And you told them, you and Mr. Paulson told them, you're going to do this or else. And I just think that's wrong. You can make a response if you like.
My response, sir, is I never said that to Mr. Lewis.
You never said this to Mr. Lacker's wrong?
Mr. Lacker, who was an internal person at the Fed, and again, those are his words summarizing a much longer discussion. said a more subtle thing than what you're saying. What he said was that if they took this decision and if they were required to be rescued, that if this decision led the markets to attack Bank of America and create a destabilization of the company, and the government had to come in on Sunday night and save them, that we would take that into account in thinking about management. That's a very different thing. And also, I did not say that to Mr. Lewis.
What about your attorney who said that you were going to put pressure on him? I brought that up in my previous 5 minutes.
Well, again, I did say very strongly.
He works for you.
I said to Mr. Lewis that that we strongly believe that invoking the MAC was bad not only for the financial system but for Bank of America, but I didn't tie it directly to replacing him or the board.